Well, hi everybody. Yes, it's Mike Cooksley here again for another 3 hours of the Northwich Now programme, talking about issues and events that are happening in and around Northwich. Well, a few weeks ago, we had an energy advisor, Mark Thompson, on the Northwich Now programme. He was giving listeners tips on how to tackle the energy crisis and give tips on how to get, in his words, I like this, energy savvy. And we've had requests from listeners to have Mark back on the programme again as we get into winter, and we'll probably start using our energy supplies to a greater extent. So here he is. Good afternoon, Mark.
Hello, Mike.
Great to have you here. Thanks very much indeed. Great to have you back on the programme. Listeners were eager to have you back, particularly as we're now getting into winter. Yeah. The clocks have gone back, of course, and we're tending to use a lot more power. Firstly, before we get into tips and advice, I know people will be sitting on the edge of their seats waiting to hear from you. I wonder if you could tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you came to be offering advice as regards energy usage.
So my whole career I've worked in sort of engineering and energy. In the last 10 years of my career I worked specifically in energy. Retired a couple of years ago. And have since found myself becoming passionate about home energy efficiency.
No such thing as retirement, is there?
No, and I've got a thermal imaging camera. I did a load of surveys around the area, locally around Northwich last February, which was enormous fun, just as a voluntary thing.
Okay.
So I'm fascinated by understanding how people use energy in the home and how I can help provide them with really clear, straightforward, simple information that helps people work out what they need to do for themselves to reduce their energy consumption.
Terrific.
And very recently I set up a website really just to sort of get out there everything I know, which is www.getenergysavvy.info, which is something I just do as a hobby. And there's all sorts of stuff on there. Most of the stuff on there actually is the sort of stuff we're covering today. But it's really plain English, simple information about energy in the home, and is it best to use a dishwasher or wash in the sink, and all those sorts of questions that come up.
Great, that's what we like. Plain, simple speak. It does tend to get overtly complicated for people, and people do get really confused. Even with the help that the government is helping people with this winter, it's going to be really difficult for many people. Before we start talking about how to save energy, I wonder if you could tell the listeners, a lot of confusion on this, about the energy price cap or the energy price guarantee as it's now known. People are very confused over this. Sure. Could you tell them how it works?
So the government support is supporting the amount that you pay per unit of energy, not a cap on how much you pay for your bill. So
that's where the confusion. A lot of people who've contacted the programme are still confused over this. They think there's a cap on how much they will end up paying in total for the year.
Sure.
That's not right, is it?
No, it's the equivalent of having a cap on the price of tea, cup of tea.
Right. Yeah. Go on.
Not on how many cups of tea you drink.
Right. So in other words, even though this cap is on per unit of energy,
that's it.
The more energy you use, the more you. So you could end up paying more than they average it at 2,500. You could end up paying a lot more of that depending on how much energy you use.
Yes, absolutely. The more you use, the more you will pay. So the more tea you drink, the more you'll pay. But the price of a cup of tea, effectively,
and the less you use, the less energy you use, the less you're going to pay.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So listen, listeners. Let's just make this clear. The energy price guarantee. It's a limit on the price per unit of energy.
Per chunk of energy.
It's not on the amount that you'll pay during the year. So that's just correct. Get that straight. So if don't think, well, it doesn't matter how much I use, I'm only going to pay 2,500. You'll pay a lot more if you use a lot more energy.
That's right. And if you manage to reduce your use and use energy efficiently, you can actually end up paying less than you might have last year. Actually, if you've got a small home and you're a low energy user. So
Yep, terrific. You've made it clear, in the last programme, that you're not an expert on energy suppliers, payment system, tariffs, or anything to do with grants or government support. Right. But what you can do is tell the listeners how to be more savvy on how to understand and use energy. So before we get, I know there's some specialist subjects that you want to talk about this programme. We've, again, had some emails and texts in. I wonder if we could just go through these initially to start off with. So an email again, very similar to one we had when you were last on the programme, which is what was a month ago or something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, something like that. What uses the most energy in the home, and where can I make the most savings? Probably that's the main question that everybody asks.
Okay, think of it in terms of the things that generally use the most energy are the things that are heating water. Whether it's your water in your radiators, water in your hot water tank, or water that you use for showering and bathing.
Okay.
So heating water,
Yeah.
wherever that water is generally the hungriest thing altogether.
Right.
So anything you can do to be more efficient in terms of your heating settings, your heating controls, using your thermostatic radiator valves, your boiler settings, anything you can do to reduce how much water you use when you're showering and bathing. So slower showers, reducing the flow of showers, having a lower level in the bath, all of those things will make a difference. So heating water is a very hungry activity from an energy point of view. It's very energy hungry. So generally that's a big one. And then the other big one that people were probably very familiar with is tumble dryers, which are very convenient, but they can be very expensive. It's sort of typically around sort of £1.50 for a wash loader and a tumble dryer. Those are the biggies. So anything you can do to be more savvy about how you're using your heating.
Okay.
Heating your hot water, and tumble dryers. Those are the real.
So they're the big energy users. Okay. Another question here from Ted, and he says, does turning radiators down or off in unused rooms save energy when you put the heating on?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
If you think about it, if your house was twice the size that it was, your heating bill will be twice as big. So anything you do to shut radiators off in rooms you don't use very much will make your heating system think your house is smaller. It'll act as though it's smaller, so it's only heating smaller areas of the house.
Right, so you won't use as much energy?
No, you won't. No.
So if you've got any spare rooms or what have you that you don't normally use, turn the radiator off.
I would turn it off completely. Make sure your trickle vents in those rooms are open if you've got a little vent above the window to keep it ventilated.
Yeah.
If you haven't considered locking the window in a slightly open position on UPVC windows, you can open them just like a quarter of an inch.
You can
to get some ventilation, because that's quite important to avoid any condensation or damp issues. And if you still have damp issues, then turn the radiator on just a little bit. But I would recommend turning them completely off.
And in this day, somebody's followed up on this because I asked this one last time. Mm-hmm. How does the eco button work on my heating boiler, and is it worth using this?
Okay.
I know it's on the boiler and sometimes on washers and whatever. There's like a little eco. It says eco button.
Yes.
How does that work? Is it worth using? How does it work?
This is usually on combi boilers where you don't have a hot water tank. And your hot water is
that's what we've got at our home.
So your hot water is heated directly by the boiler and it goes straight to your tap.
Okay.
And what most of those boilers have is a little water tank inside that's kept permanently hot. It's only a couple of litres or something, 3 or 4 pints. It's quite a small small tank of water. And what the boiler will do is it will keep that permanently hot so that when you turn the tap on, there is immediately some hot water.
Immediate hot water, right.
But keeping that little tank of water hot costs about £50, maybe a bit more a year.
Okay.
To keep it hot there all the time, because the boiler has to continually keep it warm.
Yeah.
Because it'll cool down naturally. And the boiler will kick in every hour or two to keep it warm.
Yeah.
So that is called a preheat, or boiler preheat is sometimes what you see on the fronts of boilers.
Okay.
And if you turn that off, you will save yourself certainly £50 a year. I've seen estimates that say a bit more.
So that's pressing the eco button.
So if you press the eco button, it will turn that off, and that tank of water then won't continually be heated. It will be allowed to cool down.
Right.
And the downside is if you press that button, you'll have to wait longer for hot water to come through because it's got to start from scratch. The boiler will be cold. So that is the downside of leaving that button, of pressing that button in. But what I would suggest to people is try it and see. Press the button. If you're happy with how long it takes for the water to get warm and it comes through to your sink or shower or bath, then fine. But I think for most people, it's a very simple way of saving £50+ a year. Just to press that button and it will.
So no big hardship really, is it?
Not
just
a
got to wait a
hardship,
few minutes for
it wastes a little bit of water.
Yep.
But it certainly saves quite a lot of money over a year.
Yeah. Okay. Another question here, an email that came in. No name to this. I know it was asked last time. Is it worth having a smart meter installed, and how can this help?
Absolutely. I'm very positive towards smart meters. My parents have just had one, for example.
Okay.
They were in their 80s, and I didn't persuade them to have it. But they're really energized and motivated by what it's telling them. They're learning all sorts of things about energy in their home now that they had no idea about before. So
the smart meter. Just let me get me wrong, because we haven't got one, because unfortunately our Wi-Fi signal that used it wasn't adequate where we were. Just explain how it works. You can actually look at this, can you? Is the little screen that I take it that you look at, and does that tell you how much energy you're using and what have you?
Sure. So when you get a smart meter, which is really the bit in the box outside on the outside of the house normally. Yeah, where your meter is.
Yeah.
You get the offer of by your energy company. You'll be offered a small display, a little black box normally that you have inside the house,
right,
that tells you what's going on, and that will tell you if you've got a gas smart meter and an electric smart meter. It will tell you how much energy you've used today, how much you spent on your energy today, how much you're likely to spend for the rest of the day. It will tell you exactly how much you're using now, so you can go around your house and you can switch things on.
You can adjust. You
can switch things on and see what happens to the display. You can switch things off. Yeah. And also these displays learn what happens in the home. They'll work out over a period of time what is typical in the daytime, and then it will sometimes flag up an alert that says it looks like you're using a bit more energy than you normally do. It will come up with an amber light or a red light, and then you can think, oh, have I left the lights on in the garage? Have I left a heater on in a bedroom or whatever it might be? And then it will alert you to that, and then you can go and obviously investigate and work out.
For a very useful device then for energy saving.
Yeah, I mean, I say it's the equivalent of having a smart meter is like having a car with a speedometer. You wouldn't have a car without a speedometer. But if you don't have a smart meter in one of these displays, then it's like driving a car without a speedometer.
Okay.
So it gives you an idea of where you are, where you're going through the day, and I've seen lots of people really, really positive about them. Albeit I do understand that there are people who are worried by them for various reasons, but I think there are so many positives with them. I would always recommend.
So there you go, on. Mark says it's worth having a smart meter because you can keep a check on how much energy you're using. Another quick question here. The energy efficiency ratings on electrical devices. Yes. When you buy a new device, it has a thing stuck on it, doesn't it? It says A, B, C. Yes. Can you just explain what they are?
Yes, if you go around in a kitchen appliance showroom like a Currys or somewhere, you'll see these labels. They've got a colour bar chart on it with A, B, C to G. That's been around for 25 years. And the idea of that is when you're looking for a washing machine or a dishwasher or a freezer or a fridge freezer or something, that you can compare different products to get an idea which are the most energy efficient ones. It's been around a long time, but it was revised about 18 months ago, and they've reorganised the whole thing so that the chart means something different now, because all the products that we were buying were gradually becoming A-rated or A+ or A++. So they've revised the system now. We still have an A to G rating, and we've still got the same colours.
Okay.
But they've completely revised it about 18 months ago. So if you look at a freezer now, for example, a freezer that would have been A+ in the old system is now an E or an F. So if you go around now, you will see lots of products that look like they're not very efficient because they're E's and they're F's and they're D's. But actually, all they've done is just create more, a new system to try and encourage the manufacturers to make them even more efficient than they are at the moment. Because it was getting a bit silly, because we got to A, and then they went to A+, and they went to A++, and they went to A+++. So they decided to redo the system. So when you go around now, you will. Some people get very disappointed because they say, "Hang on a minute, all the televisions in Currys they're all E's or F's, and they're not very efficient." But they actually are.
Right.
But the system is there to help guide you as to which ones are the best. So you can look for an E television or an F television, and so on. And on the website, there is a very straightforward guide to all this. So if you want to actually work out how much it will cost you to actually run a freezer or a fridge or a dishwasher or a washing machine, it gives you a very step-by-step way of actually going into a showroom like that and actually working out how much it will cost you to run a freezer or a washing machine.
Terrific.
For a year.
Oh,
in
that's
pounds,
great.
shillings and pence.
Okay, great. These next three quick questions that I've got for you, that they're not specific, but generally, since you've been last on the programme, these are a sample of what's come through. If you just want one room warm, is it cheaper to use an electric heater or to leave my heating on?
Good question. If you're only going to be in there for, say, an hour, then I would just use a fan heater, for example, and point it at you.
Yeah.
Or a little halogen heater and point it very near you.
Okay.
If you want to be in there for a few hours, or the day, or a long evening, it is actually cheaper to run your central heating, especially if you turn the other rooms off.
I was going to say, with your tip about turning the radiators off in other rooms.
If you have a lounge and you want it to be nice and cosy one evening, turn all the other radiators off and just run your central heating just keeping that one radiator hot, and of course it might put another one like the hall on as well. And that will be much cheaper than using an electric heater, because electric heaters are very expensive to run.
Okay, so if it's just for a short spell, then fine, use a heater. Otherwise, if you're going to be in there for a long spell, use your central heater.
The only one extra thing I would say to that is if you do that, and you want to put the other radiators back on in the other rooms, remember the position they were at on your radiator valve or your thermostatic radiator valves, so that you're putting them back to the right temperature for those rooms.
Right, okay.
Otherwise, you'll end up suddenly finding when next time you turn the radiator, the heating on, all those rooms will be red hot.
Okay.
So you'll be kicking yourself in the foot, and creating an own goal if you don't remember where the settings were.
Next one: are heated throws or over blankets expensive to run?
They are cheap as chips to run. They're brilliant. We've got used to a world where we think we have to have the whole house warm, or the whole home warm, and actually a heated throw that might be sort of 5 foot by 4 foot size. They're about 5p an hour to run at the highest setting.
That's cheap.
Yeah.
Really?
So it's a personal heating system.
Yeah.
Why not? Just heat yourself, and you can get heated floor mats as well. So everyone's different in terms of what their personal heat needs are.
Right.
So some people get cold backs, some people get cold feet, some people get cold hands. Heated throws are a super way of having your own little personal heating system. Heated mats for the floor are 2p an hour.
Is that all?
Yeah, not very much. So it's just heating you. Why do you need to heat a whole room when you can just heat yourself?
Absolutely.
And obviously it gives you a lovely cosy effect underneath as well.
Terrific. All right, okay. I keep hearing it's cheaper to run your heating on low in the background all of the time. Is that true?
That is a myth, unfortunately. It's been around for many years. There are some homes where it might make sense to do that. But these are only going to be homes that have got the latest boilers with advanced controls, and they're properly set up to do that. And it also has to match sort of lifestyles and how you use the home as well. The simple reason for it is that the warmer a home is over a 24-hour period, the more it will leak heat out. So if you only want the home really warm in the evening and a bit in the morning, only put the heating on for the morning or the evening. And that will, in most cases, be the most efficient way. And 24/7 running for a whole home is in almost all cases going to be more expensive.
Okay, terrific. Sound advice. We're talking about simple steps to save on energy. This one, once we've heated up our homes during the day, is it worth closing the curtains on windows overnight to retain warmth in the home?
Yes, definitely. Even if you've got the latest double glazing, glass and glazing is actually very leaky from a heat point of view. So walls are much better at keeping heat in than glass and glazing, even if it's the latest glazing. Anything you can do to create a barrier between the warmth in the room and that cold piece of glass will help keep heat in. And if you do draw curtains at night, when you open them in the morning, you'll notice actually it's quite a lot colder behind the curtain than if you left the curtains open during the night. And that's because the curtains have kept the heat in the room and they've kept the cold out. And of course, if you're drawing curtains, if you can possibly do it, tuck them in behind the radiator, and that will help the heat from the radiator when the radiator comes on in the morning go into the room rather than into the window and out the window. So it's a much more efficient way of doing it. So yeah, keep them drawn. And keep them drawn during the day if you haven't got any sun on the house. Whenever you keep your curtains drawn, you're creating a barrier to heat.
You're insulating.
You're creating an insulating layer between you and that window.
All right, terrific advice. Okay, normally during the features I have a break, but there's too much, so I hope you don't mind, folks. We're not going to have a break. Apologies to our advertisers, but I normally play a jingle, but I think this is probably too important, really. I don't want to lose any time. I know you wanted to talk about some specifics, Mark. You told me during the week before the programme. First one was laundry drying. Yes. How to minimise drying time costs and damp issues.
Yeah,
so crack on.
I've become a bit of a geek on this subject, and I see an awful lot of stuff on Facebook groups on energy with people worrying about how to reduce their laundry costs, whether that's avoiding tumble dryers altogether. People are buying dehumidifiers and heated airers, and then they're finding that their running costs for those can be quite high. So I've become a bit of a geek on this. So the first thing, of course, is don't forget if you can dry outside at all, even in cold weather, if it's windy, stuff will dry. And there are a lot of creative ideas out there for trying to keep the rain off as well. There's an article on my website with lots of creative ideas, with people using pop-up greenhouses, gazebos, garden umbrellas, all sorts of stuff that people are using all the time to be able to dry clothes outside when it's actually raining. So if you can find a creative way of doing it outside, obviously that's free. If you want to dry inside, there are some really important things I don't think many people are really aware of. And the first thing is, when you've got a wash load of wet laundry, that will hold often between 2 and 3 litres of water. So that's 4 to 6 pints of water is in those clothes,
really?
and you've got to try and dry that.
Okay.
And if you just let that dry in the house, or you've got a heated air in the house, all of that moisture is just going to go into the air in the house and create damp issues. And there is a direct relationship between that and energy. So if you've got humid, cold air in the house, you'll have damp issues, and then your heating will have to work harder to dry off the damp. It will make you feel colder because humid, cool air will make you feel clammy,
of course.
And then you'll feel more likely to put the heating on. And also, heating systems have to work harder to heat humid, cool air than they do dry, cool air.
Okay.
So actually, having damp, cool air in a home is really, and it uses energy. It's bad for energy consumption and energy efficiency. So if you've got several pints of water in your laundry, you really want to get rid of that, and ventilation is the best way of doing that. So you think about trickle vents we see on windows. If you haven't got trickle vents,
those are the little things at the top, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really important. But for laundry drying, you really want to put your laundry in a small room if you can, on its own. Shut the door and actually open the window. Open the window a little bit
to get rid of the moisture.
Get rid of that moisture. You don't want it in the house because, as I say, it will make you feel cool, and your heating system will have to work harder.
Right.
Now I know it's counterintuitive to open the window because we think we're going to be losing heat, but actually overall it's the best thing.
Really?
To do. Have some ventilation.
Okay, sound advice.
Is the best way to dry laundry indoors efficiently. So trickle vents, always keep them open anyway, and that will also help get rid of moisture in the home because you and I will be generating moisture anyway in the home from breathing, cooking, bathing, showering. All sorts of things.
So all you're going to do is add to it.
All you're going to do is add to it. So the best way of getting rid of condensation and damp issues, and to have a more comfortable home, is to have enough ventilation. Particularly when you're doing laundry drying.
Great advice.
And there are some other tips on laundry that will help. So one that people often suggest, and often many people do, is to re-spin the laundry in the laundry in the washing machine.
My wife does.
They put it on a second spin cycle.
That's it. Yeah.
Now I've been doing some really geeky measurements on this. So I've been weighing laundry.
Does that work?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you. So
go on.
I've been weighing laundry when it's dry, and then weighing it when it's wet, and then I've been weighing it after I've re-spun it.
Go on.
To work out how much moisture you actually lose by doing that.
Right.
I did a test the other day
Yeah.
where I've got a couple of fleecy cotton dressing gowns,
Right.
which absorb
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of water.
Yeah, they would. Yep.
So I washed them, and each one of those was holding about 1.25 pints of water
Really?
when it came out of the washing machine.
That much.
Yeah, quite a lot of water. And
Yeah.
then I respun them, and all I got out of each one was 3 tablespoons of water.
Is that all?
Not very much. So, and I've done that sort of test on different types of laundry. So really, you don't actually get very much extra water out of your laundry by doing a respin in the washing machine. And that's on
Right.
a machine. My machine's got a 1400 spin cycle. There are more higher speed ones than that. So actually, it doesn't get very much water. It's
So
just
it's-
not worth doing. And also, the spin cycle for a washing machine is actually the harshest thing you can do to the machine.
So it's a fallacy to do that.
It is really.
All right. So all you're going to do is use extra energy.
You use a bit of
but
extra
the amount
energy.
of moisture you're going to get rid of, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it, and it's the harshest thing you can ask the machine to do is to spin round at that speed. And
Right,
of course, you know,
yeah.
they walk around the room sometimes and all this sort of
I
thing.
think we've got a 60. So if you're listening to this, Mrs. Cooksley, if you heard that, so don't put the second spin on.
There will be people that say, I always do, it definitely makes a difference, but I have weighed laundry, I can tell you
Well, so that's it.
It
Right.
doesn't make much difference.
No,
it
well,
really doesn't. It's just
great.
not worth putting the stress and the hardship on the machine. I feel
Okay.
sorry for the
No,
machine.
terrific advice.
Other tips are for things that do absorb a lot of water during laundry, like
Yeah.
towels and
Yeah.
jeans. If you can wait to wash those until you can do an outside drying on
Okay.
a washing line, avoid drying them indoors if you can. Towels also are really bad. They take a lot of drying.
Yeah.
Use smaller towels, and then you're only washing smaller things. And I know people who wash towels even when they've only used them once. Several days is fine. So think about how often you wash things as well, particularly the things that are hard to dry.
And get them outside, even if you're going to lighten them. All right, they might not dry completely.
Absolutely.
But I know Sheila says when we've got a washing line outside at the cottage, she puts them out there. And sometimes when she brings them in, they're still damp, but she says, oh, they've lightened.
Absolutely. I've done tests on that too, and you can put something out on the line, you can get a lot of the moisture out of it on the line. It might feel damp, but actually when you bring it inside, once it's warmed up a bit,
Yeah.
they usually feel a lot drier.
Okay.
And a washing line is really, really good. And then just finish it off inside on
Terrific.
on a simple
Okay,
rack.
great.
And then there's one big thing not to do when you're using a different subject using a tumble dryer.
Yeah.
If you've got a vented tumble dryer, always vent it to outside. I have heard of people venting them into the house, thinking, I've got this lovely warm air coming into the house, but this air coming out of the tumble dryer is full of moisture. It's got all of your 2 or 3 litres of water from your laundry in it. And then there are other techniques that people use, like airing cupboards for drying stuff, drying over radiators. But in all the situations where you're speeding up the drying, you've got to remember you're putting a lot of water into the house. Yes, you will dry the laundry very quickly. In that. So again, I'm going to be very boring and say, don't forget ventilation.
No,
it's definitely
okay.
the
No.
best thing to do.
Sound advice. Right. You mentioned something to me. I was quite interested. The facts on vampire energy wastage and vampire heat loss.
Yes.
What on earth is that?
So vampire energy is what the sort of media have labelled having an electrical thing like a mobile phone charger that's plugged in, that's using energy quietly and not really doing anything for you.
Okay.
So all this thing about switch your mobile phone charger off or your laptop charger, and that these things can consume a lot of energy. Now, historically, that was the case, but regulations have tightened up in the last decade or so, and most things now are really, really good. There aren't many things around a house that will sit there quietly, but using a lot of energy. Most electrical items now are really, really good, even when they're on standby. So if you take a large television, the largest television you can imagine, it's not allowed to use more than £1.50's worth of electricity in a year.
That little?
Yeah, so the regulations were tightened up across Europe, and they've got tighter and tighter over the last decade or so. So most things actually are really good.
So don't get too concerned about leaving these things on. And I assume that once your iPhone is charged up, even if you leave it leave the charger on, it's not going to use any energy.
Correct. Modern stuff, certainly if it's of a good brand, will be really good at that.
Right.
It will switch off, and the charger will basically switch off as well.
Right.
And there's one very simple way you can work out whether something is using a lot of energy, is to touch it, and if it feels warm. So if you touch a wall charger socket, one of these really black blobs you see plugged into the wall for charging things, if it's warm, it's consuming some energy, and it might be wasting that energy. If it's stone cold, it's not using any energy at all.
Right.
Now there are some exceptions to the rule. One is games consoles can be quite hungry on standby.
Can they?
And some of them have got two different types of standby mode. A regular standby and an eco standby. So if you put your hand on a games console, it's been there for a while, and it's warm, ask your teenager, if it's a teenager that uses it, to actually switch it off completely, because games consoles can be quite hungry.
Because it's using energy.
And they can cost £30 or £40 a year to run, just by sitting there in standby, waiting for you to fire it up and get going with the game. So games consoles are one of the few things that are a bit of a sinner.
Okay.
And the things to watch out for.
Okay. Look, we all love pets, right? There are millions of pet owners, aren't there, out here? We're just the same. Pets, and whether we should leave the heating on for them.
I was scared to read some statistics on this. There are 12 million homeowners in the UK who admit to leaving their heating on more than they would do for themselves. So they go out for the day and they will leave. Oh, you're holding your hand up, Mike.
We've done it. Hey,
guilty.
Come on, we've done it.
12 million homeowners leaving the heating on for the pets. So that's nearly half of UK homes do it.
All right, go on.
And the experts say, and there is a page on this specifically.
No mind the experts. What do you say?
There's a page on my website which references all the experts. All the experts say for dogs and cats, don't do it, because it actually encourages ticks and fleas.
That's a good point.
If they are permanently warm. So and they've got higher blood temperature than we have, and of course they've got lovely furry coats. So dogs and cats definitely don't do it. It is you are not doing the animal any good. And all the animal health experts say that.
Right.
If you're worried and you feel guilty about turning the heating off, get them a little igloo thing for them to go into, or get them a heated mat, which will cost 2p an hour to run. If they use the igloo and they use the heated mat, great. If they don't, they obviously don't need it. But actually, for cats and dogs, you don't need to do it. And then the other thing that people do frequently, I've learned, is leaving TVs on, radios on, or lights on for the pets. And that's actually bad for their mental health as well, because they think that you're around. So don't do that either, and of course that wastes energy. Now, there are some animals where it is important. Hamsters and gerbils. I told you I was geeky on some of these subjects.
Yeah, go on.
Hamsters and gerbils are actually quite sensitive to cold, so you do need to keep them warm. They're a bit like us. They need it to be sort of 16, 17 degrees or more.
Right, okay.
So you can use small heated pads for them and build them some nice nests and all that sort of stuff. And then the other one to finish with is, if you've got chinchillas or rabbits, you don't need to worry about them at all. They are very hardy beasts. And they will go down to very low temperatures and not suffer at all. So pets, cats and dogs, do not do it. You do not need to leave your heating on for them at all. Okay,
all right. Okay, we've taken that point. Yeah, I'll take that. Do you hear that, Sheila? We mustn't leave the heating on when the cat's at home without us. Okay, right. Look, God, 40 minutes we've been at this. Right, come on then. What are your top tips on saving money? Let's come on. I'm put you on the spot now.
The first one is, get to know your thermostatic radiator valves. They are very misunderstood. There's a very straightforward pictorial guide on my site that basically says only make very, very small adjustments on them. Number 3 setting is we'll keep a room at 20 degrees C. Number 4 setting will mean a room will go up to 24 degrees C. Number 5 setting means the room will go up to 28 degrees C. So only make very small adjustments on your thermostatic radiator valves. So get to know them and really tune into them. The old thing about turning your thermostat down by a degree could save you money is bandied about a lot, and people naturally don't do it because it makes you feel cold. And I can completely get that. So I would say, think of it the other way around. When you're going into a room, say to yourself, well, do I really need this room to be as warm as it is? You know, because most people will be comfortable at 20 degrees, but they'll also be comfortable at 21 and 22 and 23. So avoiding overheating is actually a much nicer way of looking at this. And the lovely thing about thermostatic radiator valves is you can control rooms really, really accurately and limit the room just to as warm as you need, and don't overheat, because overheating is where all your money gets thrown away.
Well, I must admit, after your last programme, I did exactly what you recommended. We turned all our thermostats down to 3 on our radiators, and I have to say, it's quite comfortable.
Yeah. 3 is fine for most people.
Yeah,
Some people
yeah.
need it a little bit warmer. Some people are very comfortable with it a bit cooler.
Right.
But just think about 3 as the happy zone and the zone to start with, and just make very, very small adjustments on it, up and down, if the room isn't quite warm enough.
Yeah.
But never turn it fully to 5, because that will mean the room will just run away and get hotter and hotter and hotter.
Okay. All right. We're going to have to wind up in a few minutes. Some last-minute tips. What do you want to say to people? Carry on if you've got anything you want to say.
Personal learning I had was, if you have an old freezer in your garage, like my dad's got and like I had, beware, because they can be really, really energy hungry. My dad's, he's very emotionally attached to it because it's a workbench at the same time. But old freezers are very, very inefficient.
Really?
And what I mean by old is, if it's so old you can't remember where it came from, and it's not auto defrost, and it doesn't even tell you what make or model it is on it, it is probably a very, very energy hungry freezer.
And I bet there's a lot out there, you know.
And there are. And then another tip is, if you've got a lovely warm airing cupboard, ask yourself, why do I need it to be this warm? Airing cupboards aren't places we live. We've got a sort of romantic attachment to having warm towels and warm sheets and all that sort of stuff. But really, your airing cupboard is probably warm because none of the pipe work in there is lagged.
Yep.
So lag it and put insulation around all your pipes. It'll still be quite warm. But the cooler your airing cupboard is, the more money you will save, because yes, it's lovely and warm and toasty, but it's not heat where you need it.
Okay.
It's not in your lounge. That heat is just going to go into the space above the tank.
Right.
So yeah, don't lose your romantic connection with your hot water tank and the airing cupboard. And also, you know, we do, as I say, we tend to like the idea of warm towels and warm sheets, but we don't put our clothes in there. We don't insist that our underwear is kept in a nice, warm, cozy place. Why do we have, you know, a strong emotional attachment to warm blankets? To warm towels and warm sheets. So it's something to stand back and think about and question yourself as to why you really need it to be the coziest and warmest part of the house. All
right. Listen, we could go on and on about this. There's that much I'd like you to talk about, but we'll have to wind up. Right. Last minute tip for somebody. Come on.
Get to know your heating controls. If you've got a heating timer on the wall and you just don't get on with it, make it your friend. Get the owner's manual for it out. Find it online.
Yeah.
My website's got links to all the manuals for downloading from the various manufacturers. Make it your friend. I know it's a tedious thing sometimes, because some of them can be very tedious to use, but get to know it, and don't heat your home for any more than you really need.
Right, and the same goes for your boiler as well, I assume, the controls that you've got on your boiler
and boiler
as well?
temperatures. There's a lot of stuff in the media now. It's becoming much more common to hear stories about reducing the temperature in your radiators. The lower your boiler temperatures run, the cooler your boiler operates, the more efficient it will be, and your boiler will last longer as well.
Okay. What's your website again?
www.getenergysavvy.info.
Okay, we'll put that on our Facebook page on Sunday, as we did a few weeks ago when you were last on. Mark, on behalf of everybody, thanks ever so much for coming in. It's a pleasure to have you in here, honestly. It's quite enlightening what you have to say to people. But the great thing is, you do it very plain and very simply, and it doesn't seem to be as confusing as some of these so-called energy experts when they put through.
The next time I come in, I'd love to come in and bore you about the costs of running a microwave and things like that, because I'm doing all sorts of geeky measurements at home on cooking and how much it costs to cook an omelette on a hob.
Oh, right,
I'm
great.
doing those sorts of measurements at the moment, and I've got
Terrific.
a few surprises for people.
Well, we've branded you as our energy-saving expert now here at Radio Northwich. All I can say on behalf of all the listeners is thanks ever so much for coming in. We've really enjoyed it. Whether we'll see you again before Christmas or not, I don't know. But we will be asking you for a Christmas tune. So my programme just before Christmas, I usually ask people to choose a Christmas tune. But I'll drop you an email on that. Mark, thanks for coming into the programme. Really appreciate it. Look forward to you coming in yet again.
Cheers, thank you.